1 week ago, I gave you my top 10 favourite films of the year. And now it's time to delve into the worst. Let's do it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my 10 worst movies of the year. When I say worst, there are 3 categories that I kind of mulged together to form this list. There are films that I've watched and have no impact whatsoever, completely forgotten. There are films that are massive disappointments, and then there are films that I just downright hate. So this list is kind of an amalgamation of those 3 categories. And yes, I know I know the year hasn't actually come to an end yet. I know that we've still got Aquaman 2 in front of us, but honestly, I don't think I'm going to be getting to see that this year. I've yet to see Godzilla -1 that I really want to see. Things have just been way too busy. So yeah, we're going to delve into these. Now, a lot of these films, I'm guessing some of them will make other people's top 10 movies of the year, and that's fine. It's subjective. Art is subjective. Film is subjective. What works for one person doesn't for someone else. But here I present to you 10 films, the worst for me of the year. So let's delve into it. Okay, so 10th spot. And it's a film that I did picked up on Steelbook because I'm a big fan of the franchise, and that is Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. I grew up on Transformers. I love the Transformers. I've got all the comic books from the Marvel era back then in the mid-80s to present. Transformers are still a comic book that I read today. I enjoy the world of the Transformers and this sort of a thing. So I went into this film. You know, I was looking forward to it. Of course I was. New Transformers film. The Maximals were in it. You know, the Beast Wars creatures, this sort of thing. And it combined the two. What could go wrong? Well, a whole lot. The problem with this film for me is that, you know, in 2018 we were given Bumblebee. Bumblebee was a fantastic film. It seemed like a new direction for the Transformers franchise, and that film was adored by many. It really was. But all the goodwill that film gave us, that film built up, has been ejected by this movie. This movie, Rise of the Beasts, has just gone back to giving us the formulaic Transformers movies that we've had before, and I've had fun with the ones before. I have. I think my least favourite is the last one, the night one. I can't remember the name of it. Is it Last Night or something like that? It was very disjointed. It was just cobbled together. It had no directional flow through it. It just felt like scenes put together that made no sense. But what it did have was Mark Wahlberg, and Mark Wahlberg, I quite enjoy his performances. There's an energy to him, and before him, Shia LaBeouf. These people brought an energy to the Transformer franchise where I enjoyed watching the human factor. This film didn't have that. This film didn't have that human factor. The humans in it were boring. They were dull. They were lifeless. There was nothing to them. And I've heard people say, "Oh, this is a slickly made movie." Some of the effects are horrendous. There's little elements to the effects where you can tell that they're cheaping out on it. The fact that none of this is actually set in a city, not that I'm knocking that, I'm not, but you can see the cheaper direction by taking it out of the city and having it in open sort of deserty lands, or in you know, Peru, where there's no people and no, it's easier to do. It's easier to do, I'm just saying that. But ultimately the film offered us nothing new. There was something, a little key thing that Transformers had to go after again, something like that. They were trying to bring, the baddies were using it to bring the big bad through. My mind's gone blank. Unicron, to bring Unicron through, and Unicron started coming through, but it gave us, we had that at the end of another Transformers film. I think it might have been Dark of the Moon, I'm not sure now, they all intertwine, where they've got the beam things and they're bringing Cybertron back through, and you see Cybertron coming through space, appearing above the Earth. It's exactly the same damn film. So for that, that's my 10th spot. Then we jump to number 9, Five Nights at Freddy's. A lot of people were raving about this. Oh, Five Nights at Freddy's. So I'll give it a watch. It was horrendous. It was abysmal. It offered me nothing. It made me want to watch Willy's Wonderland again with Nicolas Cage. A film that done it far better. Now, Five Nights at Freddy's, I know, is based upon a game that I've never played. So I'm not there with that. But, you know, the writing was on the wall straight away, who the big bad was, who the main bad guy was. You know, Scooby-Doo fella, Scream fella. Yeah, this film just didn't work for me at all. In the least, there was nothing about it whatsoever that would compel me to watch or even own this movie. Okay. And next up we have Talk to Me. Now, I could fill this list with horror films that I have seen throughout the year, but Talk to Me, I found stupid. I didn't find it scary. And I've stepped away from it now, and I cannot remember a single damn thing about the film. There's literally nothing about that film that has stuck up here at all. It's in and it is out, it is gone. I don't even know enough about it now to talk about it. When a film has that impact on me, or that lack of an impact on me, it's got to make the list. You know, nothing. And then that brings me to Infinity Pool. Exactly the same. Exactly the same impact. No impact whatsoever. I just didn't like it. It just wasn't for me. Now, I know a lot of people like the horror genre. The horror genre really doesn't work for me as much as it does for other people. Yeah, I mean, every now and then a horror film will crop up that I'll watch and I'll think, oh, you know, it's pretty damn good. I enjoyed that. Talk to Me, Infinity Pool, not them at all. Remaining with horror, dropping down to number 6. Evil Dead Rise. Yes, Evil Dead Rise. I love the Evil Dead franchise. It's a horror franchise that I do adore. I like Bruce Campbell. I think Bruce Campbell is fantastic. However, there's 2 directions to the Evil Dead. There's the Bruce Campbell route, and then there's the other route, the remake route. And this film here is essentially a remake of the remake. Yes, in 2014, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, we had the Evil Dead remake movie. This film is essentially a remake of that. This film is a remake of the first Evil Dead film. And I don't know how people can't see it. It's exactly the same movie. It's exactly the same setup. Everything about it is the same. All that you've done is you've transposed the location from a cabin to a tower block. Yeah, that's all you've done. You've got a small amount of people stuck in a isolated location, cabin in the woods. Tower block that's deserted because everyone's leaving it. It's being condemned. There's not many people left in it. The people get stuck in their location at the cabin in the woods. The bridge goes out. In the tower block, the stairs and lift are out. The stairs fall. Prior to that, the Book of the Dead is found in the bowels of the building, whether it's cabin in the wood or whether it's a tower block. Someone takes the recording and the books and ultimately plays what's on them, releasing the dead or releasing the evil, and thus ensues a fight for survival against said evil. Exactly the same film, exactly the same setup, everything is the same. There's nothing you can say to me that tells me that this film gives me anything fresh in the Evil Dead franchise. At least Sam Raimi knew this going into Army of Darkness. Evil Dead 1 was Evil Dead 1. Evil Dead 2 was a remake of Evil Dead 1, where it squished the Evil Dead 1 into the first 10 minutes and then gave you a continuation. And then, what can you do with it next? What can you do with this next without giving you exactly the same as what we've given you? We've got to go a different direction. That different direction was gone in the Army of Darkness, and it gave you something different, which ultimately also Ash vs Evil Dead TV series gave us something different. It went down the route almost like the comic books take, where they know that they've got to expand this world into something else. So therefore, Evil Dead Rise, nothing but a disappointment in the biggest way, in that it was nothing but a remake of the Evil Dead remake and a remake of that first Evil Dead movie with a different location. And people don't seem to be able to see that, though. There we go. Anyway, let's go down again. So, number 5. And, well, we are sticking with horror. This is Scream 6. A film that I said should be banned. Yes, I've done a thing saying this film should be banned. Why? Because, ultimately, the film plays so loose and fast with knives that it's disgusting. That this film shows no respect for that kind of a weapon, that people can be stabbed multiple times in the back, in the gut, and they get up and they are still running around. Now, I live in London, where not a day goes by that you don't hear a story of someone being stabbed. We're living in that kind of an era. Now, I know that in America you have gun crime, and that's different level. We obviously don't suffer that over here, but we get a lot of knife crime, and this film goes no way to show the impact, take the responsibility to show the impact of what a knife wound can do, because I could come out with a tiny little knife, stab someone, and it kills them. That's the harsh reality of it. And we're in a world where youngsters don't get this. They don't understand this. And something like this, okay, yeah, all the film's rated 18. That means nothing. That means nothing. The rating on the film means nothing. The only time now, right, that rating can be adhered to is upon entry into a cinema. Nothing more. The films are easily available online. Wherever you go, you can watch these films. So it cannot be policed. Not like in the olden days where it was policed at the point of cinema, which, okay, it could still be, but then it was policed at the point of rental and at the point of sale. Now online, anyone has access to see anything. Just my opinion, but there we go. And I know it's a controversial one with that movie, but that's Scream 6. There we go. And then, number 4. We have The Marvels. Yes, from Marvel. Now, this is a film that, I mean, a couple of years ago, big supporter of the MCU. I loved the MCU. I loved everything that Marvel was putting out. Even some of their lesser films were good. And I feel that some of them lesser films are now far better than some of the films we're getting today. Ever since Endgame, we've been on a downward spiral for the MCU. They've put out far too much content between Disney Plus and the films, and it's had an impact on quality. Now, it's been directionless. It feels that it's been directionless since Endgame. There's been a couple of highlights after that. You know, on TV, WandaVision for me, Hawkeye, yes. I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I enjoyed, but it's got a lot of problems, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man, Far From Home. Is it Far From Home? No, not Far From Home. What was the last one called? Whatever the last Spider-Man was, where the other 3 Spider-Men came into. I can't even remember the title. That's where my mind's at now with these films. It didn't work for me. But that's not about this. It's about the Marvels. This is a film that feels very much like a Disney Plus special. It doesn't live up to what it should have done. I have, in my mind, I have a far better ending for this film. For me personally, you know, the character of Captain Marvel herself, Carol Danvers, is overpowered. She's an overpowered hero, much akin to Superman. And within this film, the sad fact is that there's an interesting story. There's an interesting story, the backstory around Carol Danvers going and taking down the Kree homeworld, and the impact that she's had upon them, and seeing them as now victims of her and her power set, and what they're doing because of what Carol Danvers has done. So they're just reacting and trying to survive. So they are doing this evil. This character's doing this evil plot where she's trying to take resources from other worlds to feed her world. And ultimately, at the end, Carol Danvers, she flies into this sun that this world's got that's dying, and with her immense power set, she reignites this sun, giving life, a newfound life to the Kree. So there's a fantastic story in there. There's a great story. Could be very emotional. Now, for me, this film should have seen, with that story involved, you had the perfect opportunity to get rid of the character of Carol Danvers. And it could have been quite a powerful moment, that if she had to go into this sun to utilise her powers to reignite this sun, but the only way to keep that sun burning is that she remains in it. Is that she remains there, essentially imprisoned in the sun. She could come out, but if she come out, the sun would die. There's an interesting ending there, and it's not a finality to the character, but because you can always work around bringing her out. But I think that's where the film should have ended, with her making this sacrifice to keep the Kree alive by being the power source of the inside of this sun. That's exactly what I would have done with it. But there we go. So in that third spot, and this goes to be a rather disappointing movie, and that is Expendables 4. Yeah. I had an interesting question the other day posed to me in one of my videos, and that is, would I rather watch Transformers Rise of the Beasts again, Expendables 4, or no, I'll come to that at the end. Anyway, so Expendables 4. So I got to see this early, and wow, there was an embargo set for reviews, so I couldn't post a review until the film was actually nigh on released. And well, whenever an embargo, there's always something wrong. Now, this film here is more of a Jason Statham action film. There's nothing about it that is really an Expendables movie. Sylvester Stallone is in a almost extended cameo role within the film. If you haven't seen the film, I'm going to spoil it now for you, so jump ahead, whatever you want to do. But Sylvester Stallone dies towards the start of this movie in a plane crash, and you see his corpse. You see this charred corpse. And I was in the cinema at this press screening, and it was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen on screen. I burst into laughter. I started laughing out loud at the corpse. I found it that hilarious. Anyway, so this film. The problem with this film is it feels so fake. Everything in this film is filmed in front of a green screen. If you've seen the John Cena and Jackie Chan movie Hidden Strike, that feels about as fake as what this film does. And Death on the Nile. If you've seen Death on the Nile, very fake looking. This film has that about it. You know, when you're in action scenes with the vehicles, it's obviously green screens. The whole film it feels like it's filmed on a soundstage. Limited sets, this sort of a thing. Now, this has always been a franchise that has never lived up to its promise. It's promised that we're going to get all these action stars of yesteryear together and have a blast, have a recreate, you know, a bygone era of film. That's never really happened. You've delved into the past couple of films. You've started delving into actors that are relatively newer, who you don't even know. But this film here plays like a straight Jason Statham film, but it's abysmal story. It looks abysmal, and it even makes this cardinal sin of making you dislike your main two characters at the end. Sylvester Stallone isn't dead; he comes back at the end, and we come to find out that there was a little switcheroo at play. And this is awful. This is awful. This part. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to this rather not very nice, likable character, sort of a little man with big man syndrome who wants to get into a bit of a ruckus with Statham and this sort of thing. And they have a bar fight. All this sort of stuff goes on, and that's it. Then at the end of the film, we come to find out that the body inside the plane was actually this fella. That he'd been taken by Stallone, tied up, like stored on the plane in some little cubbyhole type thing, alive, and at the point of almost crashing, Stallone sticks him in the pilot seat and bails on the plane, allowing this individual to die. The geezer's not done anything in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, he's obnoxious. He's a twat. He wanted to fight. But that's about it. He hasn't done anything that's worth being murdered in this manner. So at the end of the film, I'm in shock because you've got Stallone telling Statham what he's done. This is how I got out of it with this geezer. Statham's laughing along with him. And it's just so undeserved. And it makes these two characters so unlikable. Like, you've murdered someone for no reason. There's not even a bad guy. You've murdered someone just because he's an obnoxious little twat who wanted to have a fight. Yeah, anyway, so that's that. Now, with my last two, I'm going to go one of the worst movies I've seen of the year, then to one of the single biggest disappointment movies of the year. So technically, my second place is my first place, but they're interchangeable, if that makes sense. So, second place is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. A cheap, nasty, horrendous movie, if ever I've saw one. I couldn't fathom what I was watching with this movie. I know it's cheap. I know it ain't got budget, but it's just crap. This film is crap. That's all I can say about it, and I don't usually say that. I don't usually say something is downright, outright crap. This film is crap. One of the biggest pieces of rubbish I've ever seen committed to film. And I bought into this. Everyone was saying, oh, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Ooh. And I'll give that a watch. Sounds like it could be fun. Anything but fun. It's crap. A crap, bad, abysmal, poor movie. Shame on you if you bought it. Anyway, number one spot. Number one spot, easily the biggest disappointment, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, come on, you knew that was coming. You knew that was coming. This film has no reason for being. This film is you know, aging has never been a part of the Indiana Jones lore. It's never been a part of the Indiana Jones story. It's not like Lethal Weapon, where all the way through your characters know they're aging, they talk about them aging, and you're following them on this journey of getting older and older and older. That's not Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is a pulp hero that should be stuck in the 1930s, 1940s, that sort of era, fighting the Nazis, different adventures. Let's forget about age and age concern and this sort of a thing. But no, this has Indiana Jones in a time period where he's not fit. He's not fit. He goes on action escapades that are not a fit for the character. Scuba diving, ridiculous. The character, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, this film is about her. It's about her. It follows her. Indiana Jones is just tagging along with her on her adventure, on her story. The film is so weak in its writing that it has to give you Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Short Round Yes, a new version of Short Round. Short Round, a little kid that got caught pickpocketing Indiana Jones and stayed with him and had the ability to drive a car. This film here has a little kid who was caught pickpocketing Phoebe Waller-Bridge and now sticks with her, and he has the ability to drive a tuk-tuk, to drive a pilot an aeroplane, take an aeroplane off, land in a storm, I no doubt, pilot a boat, which, okay, that isn't hard to do, but my point is, this is a little kid that has the ability to do everything, a perfect little kid in that sense, and that in itself is horrendous. Now, the film didn't have Spielberg directing, had James Mangold. Now, James Mangold is an accomplished director. I can't say that, but he's not Steven Spielberg. His pacing is not that of Steven Spielberg's. So you've taken this key element out of the Indiana Jones franchise and thrown it away and left with James Mangold filling that void. And you get a very different tonal shift. The character of Indiana Jones is sad and insufferable in this movie. He really is. I've heard people say, but this gives Indiana Jones a nice closure. Well, what about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Do you not realise that this film closes the exact same way as Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? End of that film, Indy gets together with Marion. There's a little tease that he's hanging up his hat, but he snatches the hat and the film ends. So potential that he's not hanging his hat up. This film ends with him getting back together with Marion, because they're now broke apart. And his hat is hung up, but he takes it. A little tease that he's grabbing his hat. So there's that. It's exactly the same. It ends in exactly the same place. So there is no nice closure. It's about as nice as the closure as you got at the end of the last film. Okay, the end of this film, where we time travel. Horrendous. Just stupid. Okay, I know that Indiana Jones has delved into other stuff before. You know, the beings from an alternate dimension, all this sort of a thing. And people say, well, time travel's not too far out of the realm of possibility if it's doing this stuff. The one thing that the Indiana Jones films always have in common are the way they end, right? The Ark of the Covenant, an item that was never meant for mankind to see. Mankind's eyes, you know, when you look upon it, it kills you. And that's what happened to the Nazis. It's not for mankind. The Shankara stones, similarly, are the downfall ultimately of the bad guy, because they're not meant for the purposes that he had them for, essentially. The cup of Christ, immortal life, but it doesn't. You can only, you're trapped. If you want immortal life, you're trapped within this seal. You're trapped within this small area. So it's pointless having immortal life. The cup steps beyond that seal, and it's gone. Again, something that's not really meant for man, immortal life. Crystal Skull. Yeah, this knowledge that this skull has is too much for the human mind to take, and thusly it kills. So thematically, every Indiana Jones film has ended in that kind of a way, and this film should have ended the same, in the sense that time travel, yes, is a possibility, but not for man. So we go on this adventure where they're trying to find these time travel portals and this sort of a thing, and we could have had an ending where Mads Mikkelsen's character wins. Indiana Jones is injured and he steps through the portal thinking that he's won, he's going to go back and change time. Only when he steps through, you have a similar scene to what happened at the end of Last Crusade, where the geezer drunk from the wrong cup and it killed him. You could have had a similarly sort of kind of a scene, thematically the same, where he's gone through this portal and inanimate objects going through fine, but flesh, human, it kills you. And their corpses then sort of appear, or they look over and there's these corpses there, and it turns out these corpses were them who had gone through this so many years before. You know, it should have ended in that kind of a manner to stay thematically the same as what had come before. But no, we got this ridiculousness of going back in time to to this era that poses far more questions than what it answers. It's just ridiculous. Biggest disappointment of the year, Indiana Jones, and Dial of Destiny. Worst movie of the year, Winnie the Pooh. Okay, so there we go. My list of 10 films for me that just didn't hit the mark for whatever reason this year. There we go. Now, I did say I had an interesting question. An interesting question was posed to me, and it was said to me, what would you rather watch? Transformers, Rise of the Beasts, Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny, or The Expendables 4? And I had to mull this question over because, I found it to be quite a difficult question to answer. I really did. Great question, though. Great question that gets me thinking. So, the answer I came to was The Expendables 4. Out of those 3 films, if someone said to me, do you want to watch this, this, or this, I would opt for The Expendables 4. And it simply came down to the movie's runtime. It's the shortest of the 3 movies. So it'd be the quickest and the least to endure. And that's how I answered that question. That's how I came to an answer to that question. And yeah, if I was forced to choose, it'd be that one because time-wise, it's the less sufferable. But there we go. So anyway, that's my list. Tell me what you thought about it in the comments down below. Tell me the films that you disliked this year. What films came out that really bugged you, really didn't work for you, that you hated? And are there any here that you actually think, that's a fantastic film? Let's have a nice conversation about it. And I'll see you on the next one. I will be doing a top 10 Christmas films before Christmas. So keep an eye out for that one as well. And I'll see you then. Take care all. Have a wonderful day, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. See you soon.